They never heard the sound of your heart breaking. Because you broke in silence. You smiled while they replaced you. You stayed calm while they chose someone else. And you walked away, without begging, without screaming, without asking why. They thought you were weak. They thought you would never survive without them. But what they didn't know was that every lonely night was shaping a stronger version of you. Every tear was washing away the old you, and every goodbye was preparing you for a life they would never be part of again. This is not a story about revenge. This is a story about becoming unforgettable. Welcome to Silent Revenge. You trusted with your whole heart. Not carefully, not halfway, but completely. The way only someone who truly believes in love can do. You opened every hidden corner of your soul and placed it in their hands, thinking they would protect it, thinking they would understand how fragile it was. You didn't hold back your affection or measure your loyalty. You gave your time, your patience, your forgiveness, and even your silence when you were hurting, because you believed that love meant staying, even when it was hard. You believed that if you loved deeply enough, it would be returned in the same way. But while you were building a future in your mind, they were slowly pulling away without warning. They smiled while hiding the truth. They spoke gently while their actions were growing colder. You could feel something was wrong, but you chose to trust instead of doubt. That trust became the place where your pain began. Every unanswered message, every delayed reply, every broken promise quietly chipped away at your heart. Yet you kept holding on, because you didn't want to lose what you thought was real. When the betrayal finally came, it didn't arrive with shouting or drama. It arrived softly, almost politely, as if your heartbreak didn't deserve a loud explanation. They moved on as though you were something easily replaced, something that could be left behind without a second thought. The shock didn't make you scream. It made you go numb. Your chest felt heavy, your breath felt tight, and your mind kept replaying every moment, searching for the place where everything went wrong. You carried that pain alone. No one saw the nights you stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why you weren't enough. No one heard the quiet sobs you tried to hide so the world wouldn't know how deeply you were hurting. You kept showing up, kept smiling, kept pretending you were fine, even though inside you felt shattered. The worst part wasn't that they left. It was that they left without caring how much it would destroy you. Your heartbreak became invisible to them. They didn't see how much you were struggling to keep going. They didn't see how every memory felt like a wound being reopened. They didn't see how your trust, once so strong, was now fragile and scared. You had loved with everything you had, and in return you were given silence, distance, and a goodbye that felt colder than any argument ever could. Even in that pain, you didn't chase them. You didn't beg for answers. You didn't demand apologies. You simply accepted the truth that the person you gave your heart to was no longer the person standing in front of you. And that quiet acceptance, though it hurt more than anything else, was the first step in becoming someone who would never again give their love so freely to someone who did know how to treasure it. They walked away believing that your silence meant you were broken, that you had nothing left inside you after they left. They mistook your calm for emptiness and your quiet for defeat, never realizing that something powerful was beginning to grow in that stillness. You didn't argue. You didn't explain. You didn't chase after them with desperate words. You simply let them go, and in doing so, you created space for something new to take shape inside you. In the quiet moments when no one was watching, you were changing. While they thought you were falling apart, you were slowly learning how to stand on your own. Every lonely night became a lesson in strength. Every tear taught you how to survive without their comfort. You started to understand your own worth, not because someone else told you, but because you had to face yourself without anyone else to lean on. They believed you were stuck in the past, replaying old memories and holding on to what was lost. But the truth was very different. You were using that pain as fuel. You were turning every disappointment into motivation, every betrayal into determination. The silence you lived in was not empty. It was filled with plans, dreams, and a growing sense of self-respect that they would never be able to take from you. While they moved on, distracted by new faces and temporary feelings, you were focused on rebuilding something deeper. You were working on your confidence, your goals, and the parts of you that had been neglected while you were trying to keep them happy. Each quiet day made you stronger, more aware of who you were and what you deserved. You were no longer shaped by their approval or their absence. They thought they had left you behind, frozen in the moment they walked away. They never imagined that your silence was the beginning of your rise. Every step you took forward was invisible to them, but it was real. Your strength was being formed in places they would never see, and by the time they realized you were no longer the same person, you had already grown beyond the version of you they once knew. You didn't respond to the hurt with anger or revenge, even though it would have been easy to do so. You didn't spread their mistakes to the world or try to make them feel the same pain they caused you. Instead, you chose something much harder and much stronger. You chose to walk away quietly and focus on putting yourself back together. While they expected drama, you gave them distance. While they waited for you to break, you began to rebuild. Every piece of your life that had fallen apart slowly found its place again. You started with the small things, the routines that helped you breathe a little easier, the habits that brought a sense of control back into your days. You took care of yourself in ways you never had before, not because you wanted to prove anything to them, but because you realized you deserved to feel whole again. Each small step was a victory that no one else could see. You began to set boundaries where you once allowed too much. You learned how to say no, how to protect your energy, how to choose peace over chaos. The person you were becoming was shaped by lessons learned through pain, not bitterness. You weren't trying to get even. You were trying to get better. And that quiet decision changed everything about the way you saw yourself and the way you moved through the world. While they continued to live in the noise of their own choices, you found strength in your own calm. You filled your time with things that made you feel alive again. You rediscovered passions, dreams, and hopes that had been buried while you were giving too much of yourself to someone who didn't appreciate it. Every day you grew a little more confident, a little more certain of who you were and what you deserved. You didn't need to announce your progress. You didn't need their approval. The life you were building was for you, not for them. And as your world slowly became brighter and more stable, you realized that healing, when done in silence and with intention, could be more powerful than any loud act of revenge ever could. While they were still caught in the mess of their own decisions, you were slowly creating a life that felt calm and steady. Their world was filled with confusion, regrets, and unfinished emotions. But yours was beginning to feel peaceful in a way you had never known before. You weren't running from your past. You were simply no longer letting it control you. Every day you chose clarity over chaos, and that choice changed everything about how you felt inside. They kept moving from one distraction to another, trying to fill the emptiness they want to face. You, on the other hand, were learning how to sit with yourself without fear. You found comfort in quiet mornings and slow evenings, in moments where you could breathe without anxiety. That calm became your strength, even though they would never understand how powerful it was. As time passed, you began to grow in ways they never expected. Your confidence no longer came from someone else's attention. Your happiness no longer depended on anyone else's approval. You built a life that made sense to you, filled with goals, self-respect, and a deep sense of purpose. While they were still stuck in patterns that kept hurting them, you were stepping into a future that felt bright and open. They might have thought you would stay the same, holding on to the pain they caused, but you didn't. You let go of the weight that had been dragging you down. You chose healing over bitterness, and that decision allowed you to move forward with grace. Your peace became something real, something stable, something no one could take away from you. Even if they never see it, even if they never understand it, the life you built out of your quiet strength became proof that sometimes the most powerful response to hurt is not anger but growth and peace that continues to expand with every passing day. They once believed that walking away from you was the end of the story, that you would fade quietly into a memory they could forget whenever it was convenient. They never imagined that the real impact of their choice would come much later, when they would finally be forced to face what they had lost. While you were moving forward, building a life that felt full and meaningful, they were left with the slow realization that something rare had slipped through their fingers. You didn't wait for them to come back. You didn't hope for an apology or a moment of regret. You focused on your own happiness, and in doing so, you became someone they could no longer reach. Your joy was no longer tied to their presence, and that freedom made you shine in a way you never had before. You were living proof that your worth was never dependent on how they treated you. As time passed, your life became richer, filled with experiences, confidence, and a sense of peace that came from knowing who you truly were. They could see the change in you, even from a distance. The person they once knew, the one who waited, who gave, who tried so hard to make things work, was gone. In their place stood someone stronger, someone who had learned how to love themselves first. That realization was heavier than any argument or confrontation could ever be. Knowing that you were happy without them was something they couldn't undo or ignore. You didn't need to say anything. Your life spoke for you. Every smile, every achievement, every quiet moment of contentment reminded them that losing you was their greatest mistake. And without trying to get revenge, without lifting a finger to hurt them, you became the one thing they could never have again. Someone who had moved on and found a happiness that no longer included their name. Here is a powerful conclusion that fits your silent revenge. Silent heartbreak script and ties all 5 keynotes together. You were never meant to beg for love that couldn't see your worth. You were never meant to stay where you were taken for granted. They may have walked away thinking they won, but what they really did was free you. Free you. Free you to grow. Free you to heal. Free you to become the version of yourself they could never deserve. You didn't destroy them with words. You didn't hurt them with revenge. You did something far greater. You became happy without them. And sometimes, that is the loudest kind of justice.